How's everyone doing this afternoon? Or yes, it's exactly afternoon now. I can say that. We were kind of on that line for a second there. I was like, do I say afternoon? It's not afternoon yet. Okay. So actually in this session, you all can go ahead and take yourselves off of mute if you'd like. And we're going to be, brown bags are a little more informal, so it's not the same kind of just nonstop sharing of the tools. We're going to be engaging in some stuff, which hopefully you will find fun and hopefully useful as well. I think somebody's trying to get in here but can't. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 12:01, and I am Keelan Koning. I'm the communications coordinator for 3CSN. Let me actually put my name on here. This always changes to 3CSN events. So here we go. And adding a couple more folks. Good afternoon, good afternoon. So I'm, again, Keelan Koning. I'm the communications coordinator for 3CSN, and I also teach English at CSU Northridge. And Iris, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Iris. I go to Cal State Northridge. Professor Koning was one of my previous professors in the fall semester of 2019.
And I've asked Iris to join me because she has a lot of experience using these tools. So she'll be able to kind of share in the demo of a couple things, and also just be here to answer questions that you might want to ask about the student perspective. I always think that it's very important to engage students as much as possible. And it's also super awesome for the students, and Iris has told me this before, it's really cool to for the students to see how much all of you are working and trying and engaging in what Zaretta Hammond calls the productive struggle of, you know, of our work together. So really, really excited to be here. And we are practitioners. We are not experts in these things, IT technical folks, but we are sharing what we know. And then some of you also will be able to share what you know, and together we can do amazing things. So really, really excited about sharing a few things with you. And the first thing, we're just gonna do something a bit active right now. So I'm going to invite you all, I'm going to share something. We have collaborations. Has anyone here used collaborations before? Let me unmute everybody. See if you want to be unmuted. You can remute yourself if you want to. Has anyone used collaborations before?
This is Carrie. No, I have not.
Hi, Carrie. Okay, anybody here used them? Okay, so, oh, Francis, you've used them before? Okay.
Frank, yes.
Great, okay, so we are, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you how you set up a collaboration. And this is one of the things that kind of is a hybrid between, between Canvas and Google. Google is the only item that we, or the technology that currently, at least on our Canvas, integrates with collaboration. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And please let me know if you can see this. Can you see the screen with the collaborations? Okay. All right, so basically you navigate here to collaborations and you click on it, and that's going to take you to current collaborations. and then you'll click on start a new collaboration. I'm not going to show that to you right now just because I have student information in this one. This is a live course, and so I don't want to compromise the student information. However, I will show you on our, 1 second. I'm doing double duty right now. Our support person wasn't able to make it today. So one moment, let me get over. I'm going to unshare, and then I'm going to show you on a Google, or rather on our PowerPoint, what the slide looks like. Okay. So let me share this with you real quick. Okay. All right, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So can you see it bigger over here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so basically I had to hide the people, but you're gonna go to start a new collaboration, and then you only really have one choice, which is collaborating with Google Docs, at least on mine. If you don't have collaborations on your in Canvas right now, you can actually add collaborations most likely through the settings, and you can add that as an app. So if you don't have it, you can look and see if that's something that you might be able to get. But you can title the document. So I titled it, what are your methods for engaging students? And we'll talk about that in a second, because that's actually the activity we're going to do together. And then you can add a description. So here I said an exercise for us to think of what is most important for this discussion. And then the student names will be here, and you can click or tap a user or group in the left-hand column to add collaborators. So you can actually also choose groups. So you could decide, you know what, I'd like my peer review groups, things like that, like different groups of students to share together in documents. And then you click on start collaborating. Now, the first time that you do this, down at the bottom, there will be a space that says that you need to give permission to through your Google account in order to be able to start collaborating. And so your students may find that too, that they have to do that as well. So that's something that might come up. Okay. So any questions about that part? Okay. So let's get out of this. Okay. So now I'm going to share this document with you. And let me show you how I'm doing that. Let me admit Betty. Okay. So over here. Okay, so if you are, for Google Docs, have any of you had experience working with Google Docs
Yes.
themselves as a collaboration? Okay,
Yes.
Francis, others? Okay. So one of the things, let me check the chat. Okay. All right. So one of the things that folks can do, okay, is to, if you want to share this, and sometimes my students, I'm currently using it for my class, and we basically do it the exact same way that I'm going to do it right now, already started doing it right now with the collaboration. But sometimes students will struggle because they have Google accounts that they're not logging in through that. So in that case, you'll need to do a share, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I've already shared it with Iris through the collaboration, but I'm now going to give you a shareable link. And we need to make sure that the link works properly. So here, anyone with the link can view We don't want that because that means that they can just look at it and they can't do anything. So anyone with a link can edit is the one that we want. Okay, and then we're going to copy the link. Now you could also, if there's a problem with this, you can also actually add the name or email addresses. So I have one particular student right now who always struggles with this. I don't know what he has linked to it, but every time we have to send him an email and we have to put him in here. So that's something just to think about in case you do decide to do this to make things really smooth, that you're going to have to be, you know, thinking about these things. Okay, so let me get into our chat so I can put, okay, here is the link. So go ahead and click on that or copy and paste it into your browser. It probably isn't going to let you directly click on it because of our new excitement in our world of Zoom bombing. So you'll just copy and paste that in and let's see if that's going to work for you. Okay, are you having success with this?
Where did you paste the link?
Oh, into the group chat.
Hi, Keelan, it's Bettina.
Hi, Bettina. Are you seeing
Hi,
it?
it's not on the chat.
It says from me to everyone. Oh, in the waiting room. Okay, well, that's wonderful. Okay, so these are the kind of things that we'll think about as we move forward. So the people in the waiting room who are actually, there's no one in there, will be having the time of their lives in our document. Okay. These are the moments that we experience with our students. They're very human moments, right? Okay, so Bettina, are you seeing this now?
Yes, I clicked the link.
Awesome.
It's opening
Okay.
something.
All right, so one of the things that I do with my students, and I think this is helpful, is to actually, I usually do here, I'll just do it this way. And that way you can just type into the box and then you don't have more problems in terms of like, let's see. You don't have problems running over each other because it gets a little bit hectic. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and answer the question here. What are your methods for engaging students in class right now? And are they working? So how do we engage them when they're in class? And then you also get to be anonymous and have fun animal names like an armadillo and a jackalope. And I learned new words like aurochs, I guess. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's take about, let's say about 4 more minutes in order to just type in what we're doing to engage students in class right now, and you know what we're finding. Are we wondering if things are working? Are we looking for other ways to perhaps engage students? Probably, because that's why you're here. So we'll work together on this. Let's expand this a little bit because this could also be in sessions, like with different kinds of sessions. This will work for counseling, different things in terms of asking, you know, if students might have some questions, this is a way to kind of open those doors as well. Okay, so let's take like one more minute. Is anyone having trouble accessing the chat? The link to the document? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and just come back together. So I see some really good things happening in our document, our shared document. And this is a way to kind of sometimes open a synchronous session with students. You can also do these kind of things asynchronously. So you can have the Google collaborations and students can share with each other during that time or with faculty. So this is an option in terms of like doing peer review, things like that, in order for students to be engaged in discussion. One of the things that I noticed is my students actually really want to have synchronous sessions. They feel like that gives them a rhythm in their days. And so I initially thought that I was going to stop having synchronous sessions because I've taught a lot of asynchronous online courses have a lot of experience with online instruction, but the students really seem to want to continue to meet together. And so one of the things that we do in opening, because of things like unstable internet and such, is that we actually use this Google Doc, which will be this other space for students to be able to engage, and then we can come back to it. And so this has been something that's been extremely helpful for my students. So here, when we have Zoom sessions, I ask them a question to respond to on the chat. They also discuss in the breakout rooms. For our project, I had one-on-one Zoom conferences. Okay, so there are some engagement things and Zoom sessions. They're doing discussion in the breakout rooms, one-on-one Zoom conferences. Okay, so for this first piece, one of the tools that you can use in these Zoom sessions is actually to include a Google Doc as part of that Zoom session, as we are here. That's something that might be helpful for the students and when they're in the breakout room. So for instance, I'll put students into breakout rooms, and then they will move into, they will work on collaborating on a Google Doc that everyone is sharing. And we do basically each session, each class session that we have, each meeting, we have a shared Google Doc. And then any student who's not in class that day can go back and look at that document. So we have had some success with that, okay. The second one, CSEM professor is holding Zoom sessions and what would be in-person meetings, same day time. So those synchronous ones will call on specific people to respond to comments and questions during synchronous class discussions. She also holds weekly asynchronous online discussion on Canvas. This is how she's determining the participation grade. Iris, was this yours?
No, it was mine. It's Bettina.
Okay. Oh, hi, Bettina. Oh,
Hi.
got it. Okay. So how are you feeling about the calling on people part?
Well, the first two class sessions, there was only the same 3 people responding.
Okay.
So she had to get more people involved. Plus, most people were not sharing their screens, so and everyone was muted. So she had no idea if people were just wandering off from their screens.
Right.
So she had to find some way to make sure we were all still there and still participating and still engaged and still getting what we needed to get out of that class and from her lectures too.
Okay. Yeah, is anyone having trouble when they're, because of unstable things like that? Like, are they having trouble answering? Because that's one of the things that I worry about sometimes, and that's why, you know, kind of think about like, how do we use Google in this way in order to perhaps, you know, have everybody equitably contributing to the discussion? Because what I'm finding is that students will all participate in the Google Doc. Like, we have every single student, we do a sign in on the Google Doc. They share about themselves. So we do a question of the day, which Iris always enjoyed. And the rest of her class too. They even made a song out of it at one point. That was one of my students. So that was kind of fun. But we continue to do that, and the students choose those things. And so there's a way to be able to kind of interact. So this is a tool that, you know, can be used. I discovered that using the grid was really helpful, because that way, otherwise students were accidentally typing on top of each other, and it got pretty nuts in there. So I like doing that. But Bettina, did you have anything else any other thoughts about that?
No, but now that you mentioned the chats, I just realized that no one in my class is using the chats. The chat feature, no one uses it. Very few people do it. I guess it's because we're all, you know, she's making us all talk to each other.
Okay. So you're finding that at the graduate level that it's not an issue to be able to talk verbally.
No, the only thing that I've noticed is probably for comfort level, most people don't share their screen or don't do video. The other thing is that a lot of them, they're either driving from somewhere, so they're on their phones and on, you know, calling from the car. Those connections are really bad. If you're calling in from your phone, and it doesn't work because you can't see the screen if you're calling on your phone.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that brings up an interesting point, which is that if someone, like most of the students will be somewhere, you know, that they can type, but we do have to think about the fact that if someone were to be driving, clearly that Google Doc wouldn't be a safe thing to be doing. Right?
Yeah.
So, although, I don't know, some people, you never know, but bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so the other one here, creating synchronous events, discussions, and group work to foster learning community. Though some students do not like group work, they ultimately do allow more interaction. Statistically, the more learning community is developed, the more likely students will succeed and persist in the class. Yes, Frank, that's right. So, you know, making something synchronous, having these discussions and group work. So Google can be a tool for a lot of different things. So we see the Google Doc. Did anybody have questions about the Google Doc at all?
Yeah, I find it's an excellent way of allowing the students to collaborate with each other. And that kind of thing is really valuable in terms of making the class successful, because one of the things, the difference between distance education and traditional classrooms are that in the distance education, some students just become alienated because they're checking in at 1 o'clock in the morning and no one's in
Right.
there, and they just, but whereas if you do have some synchronous events.
Mhm.
And another thing too, in project-based learning, allowing the students themselves to collaborate within certain limitations, but allowing them to set the standards, it actually, they feel empowered to take charge of their education, and that's also a good thing. So this is, I studied this a little bit when I was doing my dissertation, and the statistics bear this out, that that's in fact truthful. So,
Thank you, Frank.
sure.
Iris, did you have something to share about Google Docs? Because I wanted to share something that when we were talking about, well, two things that I want to share with you. One is the history, and then I'm going to ask Iris to share as well. But the version history, this is something that is absolutely magical about Google. How many of us, when we were moving up in our academic experience, how many of us had that experience where the entire document was deleted? Raise your hand. I sure did. This happened multiple times. I used to work in a computer lab, and that moment when well, this is going to date me, but you know those discs that used to go in there and the little metal would come off?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh my God, those. Ugh, horrible situation. So, you know, it's like that moment when you're just like, oh my goodness, I really need therapy right now because this happened. And so many of my students will tell me things like, you know, I decided to delete the entire paper because I wanted to start over. And then maybe some of that stuff was actually quite good and we were just having a panic, right? But if we had done this before, it would have been gone. But what's wonderful about Google Docs, and there are limitations for sure, like the spell checker isn't the best, but the version history, you can see the version history here. And so you can actually go back. So you can go back and see what folks have done. You can also rename these versions. So you can choose to name them as new documents, things like that. So they can't lose anything. From the faculty side, what's fun about it is that if a student says, oh, I did all this stuff and it was all done, I don't know what you're talking about, you can actually look at the version history and see if that was true or not. So that's kind of like a teacherly moment, a little hint. Okay. So you can also email the collaborators and things like that. So I can put like a little note in here and I can say, okay, it should let me do this. It's not seeming to want to. But usually you can put like a little like comment and I can say @Iris. Okay, and then I can, yeah, so I can assign this to her. So if I decide that I want Iris to do this part of the assignment, I could go ahead and assign this to her. I won't do that right now. Okay, but you can do things like that. And then also, this is great for peer review and things like that. And I had one student who was using this constantly. I mean, she was bringing in, and she shared it with me, and she asked me for my feedback as a faculty, but she also had a few of her close friends who were on there at like 1 o'clock in the morning, helping her, collaborating. Their notes were there. It was one of Iris's colleagues in her class, and it was really amazing. And then I was able to use the chat. So we have a chat here, so you can actually also use the chat. So I noticed that she was online, and so we were able to have a discussion as well. And I've had some good success with walking students through what their work was here inside of the document as well. And so one of the things that also I have been really excited about, and I will be sharing this next week in another session in more detail, but I started actually using, and this is kind of like collaboration thing, but I started doing Zoom recorded feedback for students, walking them through the document and how I'm reading it, and kind of a reading apprenticeship style. So I've been able to have a lot of success with just walking them through how I'm reading it as well. So that's anything else about Google Docs that anybody had questions about? Okay, Iris, did you want to share right now about like your experience with Google Docs?
Yeah. I remember I use Google Docs and Google Slides often. Like we make presentations in like my Chicano studies class. For example, we were working on a slide presentation on an article by Carmen Lugo, and we would be there, and it would be like 12 o'clock at night, and we would use the chat, and we would fix slides, and then sometimes we would call each other and be like, hey, does this look good? And then it would all be going live, and we're all like in different places, and that was great because we got things done, and we were able to hear each other without actually being next to each other, but it was really close to similar to like being next to each other. Anything we needed to say, if we put in the chat or we put in a comment, we would highlight something and be like, hey, fix this. And then the person that had to fix it would see it the next day. But yeah, it was really nice to see how everything worked out.
And I like that because that also shows that you can do things synchronously and asynchronously, so that it creates that connection between each other, even though it may not be happening in real time, right? You know, you're having that connection and that discussion, you're passing the baton, you're collaborating and working with each other. And that's really powerful. So I think that's a wonderful example. So Google, you can look in here, whatever your little profile is, and on the right-hand side, or to the left of that, you see the Google apps. And some of these you may have seen many times. So for instance, like, you know, our Drive and things like that. But what Iris is talking about is Google Slides, which is basically like PowerPoint. So this is also a collaborative document. So unlike many things, like let's say that you're working in a cloud, you can kind of collaborate on certain items, but not necessarily in the same way. So like I have this, so it's not necessarily always like in that for everybody to be able to be in the document at the same time. And that's where this becomes kind of an issue sometimes. So I've used it for a bunch of different things, our summary and resources, for our texts and things like that, for students to collaborate. You can use slides, and then it becomes a slideshow that you can present. So you just click on present. And a lot of the students use this in class. They use this actually a lot more than they use PowerPoint. And even though it's not necessarily as robust of a system, it does have that kind of like almost like an what is that? Kind of like an Apple kind of way of living, I guess. You know, it's very streamlined, it's easy to use, it's functional. So you can do simple things like arrange and tools and such. But the collaboration feature is really something, and you can do the sharing in the same way as you do, like everything is very streamlined and simple. So did you want to talk about this at all, Iris? You mentioned it already, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, right there. Share, you can also share the documents to like a lot of people, and you can do view or you can do edit. And then there's also comments right there, the little.
And there's some tasks, right? You can also do tasks, or that's something separate.
Right next to the present button.
Mm-hmm.
On the left.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this one, the chat, the comment history and notifications,
Yeah.
So you can set up notifications as well, so that you can get notifications in your email when somebody updates something. So that's really helpful too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't a very exciting PowerPoint. There's some, I mean, Google slide. All right. So we have different ones, but as we go down, we also, I wanted to show you, we have, they have Google Classroom now, and this is actually, I haven't explored this much. I'm going to look into this a little more because this apparently is kind of like a Canvas. And some folks are using this. Iris, have you experienced this?
Yeah, I had it in high school.
Okay.
You make a classroom, and then there's like Canvas. You have like the professor or like the teacher, and then you have like a group of students. It's practically like Canvas.
Okay.
Yeah, Keelan, my kids also use
They're using
Google
it right
Classroom.
now?
Yeah, they use it in, my daughter's in elementary and my son's in middle school, and they use Google Classroom. It's very similar to Canvas. You have the tiles for each class subject or teacher, and she posts assignments on there, and you can submit via Classroom too.
Okay, because I did see that as an alternative. And I'm wondering, I guess we'll have to think about, like, maybe we can work together on that, Bettina, doing another session that kind of like shows people how maybe to use this. It's a cool, maybe your kids can come too. All right, so let's, looks like, let me just check the chat and make sure. All right, looks like we don't have any questions in the chat, right? Okay, so we can keep going. So one of the things that I did want to show you also, because some people, like Jessica and I were in a session last week on Friday, and one of the participants had never seen the more from Google. And there's a lot more going on down here. So not to make you dizzy, but just close your eyes for a second until I get there. Yeah. So there is a lot of stuff in here. So we have Google Forms. So the Google Forms can be like surveys. I use Google Forms a lot for surveys with my students. Iris has used those a couple times. I will do things like polls. There's Google Poll where you can, but I usually use Forms in order to do the polls as well. Like for instance, like, would you like to do this assignment or that assignment, and give them information about it. I ask for, and I have new ideas from Canvas, so I guess Canvas quizzes can work this way too. But I actually just put the form, and you can embed that form inside of the, if you look at this one, you can embed this inside of doesn't want to. You can embed it inside of your email. So you can actually send an email out, and they can actually do, they can do the entire, like I use it for permission request to use student work. I have the questions here, and then you'll see that I have 28 responses, and you can look at the data for the responses and see, you can decide whether it's anonymous or not anonymous. and you can add questions to it. You can import questions from another survey that you had before. You can add title and description. You can put a picture in there if you want to. You can add a video if you want to have a video in there. So these are different things that you can do. And then you can actually export the responses into an Excel sheet or into Google Sheets, which is another thing that you can do. And you can add sections as well. So it's a cool feature, and then you can preview it so you can kind of see how other people would see it. And then you can go back over here. You can customize the theme. So if you want to have a different kind of image or something for the header, you can play around with that. And then you can look at the settings. You can collect the email addresses if you want to. You can make sure that it requires a sign-in. You can allow people to edit after submit or not. You can shuffle the question order if you want to. You can even make it a quiz. So you can decide that you want to make this into a quiz in the Google form. And I just plug this into Canvas, and then it's easy for students, or I can plug it into an email or an announcement. And the students, you can see by the fact that I got 28 responses for this one, that it went pretty well. So that was a good thing. A couple of students did it more than once because I only actually had 24 students in class. All right, so that's that. And then if we go back, let's see. It's hard to navigate around this top part here. Okay. All right, so let's close this. Get back out. All right, so then we have also the other thing that I wanted to show you is Google Sites. And we have Google Slides, Google Sites, and then YouTube, as you know, is also Google now, and Google Sheets, where you can have all of your spreadsheets. But Google Sites is actually something that we just had a session on Friday on portfolios, e-portfolios. And so Google Sites is actually a pretty cool option to use in order to do a portfolio. And my student Jared was here with me, so we just kind of played around with it. And you can use Wix and some other different websites, but this is a pretty straightforward way to make a portfolio, and you can do it individually, or the idea here is to actually have the entire class have their pages inside their different portfolios inside of one larger portfolio container. And so our amazing community in quarantine, which is kind of what we've been talking about in class, I'm able to embed video here, things like that. So you can add images, you can insert the pages here, you can add collaborators. So, if you wanted to work on your portfolio, you were kind of wondering if you needed help, things like that, you can call out for help there. So here under pages, we have like Jared's page, and then Jared has his blog here. So we were able to add the different pieces here. So you can change the home page, you can add sub pages to it if you wanted to do that. And that's kind of what we were doing, is to create, I could have my 25 students with their different pages here, and then we could just have them all in one bucket. So sometimes what will happen, I don't know, have any of you done e-portfolios before?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so did you ever have the experience where the student did the e-portfolio and then they locked it and you couldn't get in there? Because I've had that experience. It was very frustrating.
Yeah, that one hasn't been a problem for me, but I've been I had good luck with Behance and also Adobe Portfolio. Those two are excellent because they allow the student to create their own portfolio, and they can go in and modify it, and they can the instructor can grab that URL and put it in another page so that you can have 4 or 5 students or more, and then students can see them all to see what others are doing. It's really great for collaborations and focus groups, that kind of thing. Yeah, Google Forms, by the way, is also really wonderful. I even have the students evaluate each other, and then I download the thing so I can do some data mining relative to what how they evaluate each other. It's really useful.
Yeah, that's a good tool for peer review. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just kind of like looking again, you know, this is, it's pretty simple. It's easy to use, especially right now when we're thinking about like simple is better in the time that we're in, because my students usually use Wix and they do love it. It creates beautiful portfolios, but it does take a little more time. So I'm not sure. I'm going to look into that, Frank, about the Adobe. Maybe you can come back and do a training for us on that. That would be cool.
If where I teach, the students are given the Creative Cloud. So if they have the Creative Cloud, they get those
Yes.
for free, which is really, really wonderful.
Yeah, and that's something that I would suggest, because I just notified Iris that on our campus we have the Creative Cloud for free. I think everybody needs to look into it, because I did not realize until about a week ago that I had access to Creative Cloud, and I've been paying $20 a month.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, so I was really happy about that when I realized, but it was not easy to find that information. So I would suggest that everybody definitely looks into that, because the Adobe Spark is great. I mean, I just share that with our students for different things, but for this, I think that, you know, just as is kind of straightforward, like everything is in one place, and it's something that students are very familiar with, because they're getting more and more familiar with Google Docs and just using them. So I'm finding, Iris, did you use Google Docs in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, it's something that like kind of like when we were Mac users, and you kind of grow up with it. The students now, like they're very Google Doc savvy overall. I mean, we still have issues with sharing stuff and things like that, but it's definitely like they have some familiarity with it. So. Iris, did you want to share anything else about the Google?
I feel like this current group of students that has Google Docs, like my class and then the class before me, we have like a strong connection with Google Docs, because during high school, they would give us computers, and then we would take them home and learn on them, and we would use classroom docs, slides. Yes, we had the option to use Microsoft PowerPoint, Office, but our go-to would be Google Docs or Google Slides, and we would even use Google Docs to have like conversations during class. So we would just share one document, and then we would talk on there. So that's what I like. I really like using Google Docs now. It's like, it just reminds me of high school.
Yeah, there's a comfort level. And so the fact that students are also very comfortable with it is great. And I was doing peer review for the first time since we went back into our new experience that we're having right now on Zoom. And I feel like I did not give very clear instructions, even though I had prepared everything, and I was like, oh, this is going to go really well. And then it just seemed like I felt like, oh my goodness, I didn't give them very clear instructions about what they were supposed to be doing, and the peer review sheet was not working properly. they were having trouble accessing it. And so all the things that you prepare, you know, are not working. And so you're in there and you're just like, okay, let me serenity now, let me be calm. And let's, you know, so I started to go into the breakout rooms as the students were doing peer review on their Google Docs. Well, rather on this document that I had shared with them, which was not a Google Doc. And the students very calmly told me that they're like, oh yeah, we created a collaboration, professor, and we're just in here like working on our peer review, and they figured it out. And it was like, it was beautiful because like Iris said, they're familiar with this it feels comfortable. They know how to do it. We've done a lot of collaborations, so that modeling has actually helped them to problem solve, because there's a little like help button in, as we know in Zoom, that says, please come into the breakout room and help me. And none of the students asked for help, which they do usually, because they were all in there, and my SI leaders were helping me out too. But they figured it out. They were just in there, just making their collaborations and figuring it out and helping each other out. And it was absolutely beautiful. Okay. So Paula says, I am a sign language professor. Has anyone come across a platform that has great visuals? Zoom is glitchy, and once my hands move, I look like a robot. I appreciate the assistance. Okay, so in terms of like a platform that would provide like this kind of platform, that's interesting that it's not letting you do that. I don't know. Have you tried Google Meet? Because Google Meet and Google Hangouts, like you might try them and see if they're a little smoother. Zoom is a bit glitchy, but I think I would look into Google Meet and Google Hangouts. I mean, there are just so many, it's hard to show everything that Google has today, you know, in this 1 hour that we have together. But there a lot of, actually some of the campuses, I believe PCC, Pasadena City College, is using Google Meet for their, rather than using the Confer, Zoom, in order to do their counseling sessions. So there are other alternatives to, let's see, will Google Hangout allow the students to interact without voice? I believe so. I believe so. Because this particular platform as well, like you don't have to have voice in order to interact. Yeah, that's a great question though. So that's something for us all to kind of look into as well, like what would work best for that. That's a great question. Do others have questions? That's about probably all we can handle right now. Ooh, thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Frank just posted an article on top 10 Zoom alternatives for video conferencing in the chat. I know that Skype is trying really hard. But yeah, the camera and the internet connection, you're right, Iris. Yeah, that makes a big difference. And it is hard, and it's almost impossible to get a new webcam right now. Like, it's just not gonna happen. Very interesting times that we're living in. Oh my goodness. I've been trying to, I ordered a webcam like a month and a half ago, a better one. It's still on back order. So it gets a little harder right now. Okay, so any other questions that folks have, or thoughts, or how you're using Google tools? Frank, anything else that you wanted to share?
I just think that any way that we can allow the students to collaborate with each other and
Yes.
it's beneficial, because though I've been involved in distance education for some time now, a lot of instructors and professors are thrown into it at this point, and they're trying to recreate their online situation, but there are some differences because by the nature of things, it's you almost have to kind of set it up for the students to collaborate and interact with each other because so that we don't lose them, so they persist.
Thank you, Frank. I did not pay you for this announcement, but that is
Okay.
that was exactly the point of this session. So thank you. I could not have put that better myself. You know, as we think about the ways that we can engage and support students in their identity, you know, the moments that sometimes seem like the flop where you're just like, oh my goodness, and you're kind of just wonder, you know, those moments when you just like freeze, and then you see that engagement that's happening as the students come together, and those are the community building moments that bring that retention, bring that sense of self, bring that comfort level that Iris was talking about, right? You know, I feel very comfortable with this thing that I've been using since high school, and right now there's a vulnerability that's coming. Especially for our, you know, well, I mean, just for people across the board, right? But when we're thinking about like, especially students that are, you know, coming out of high school, or folks who may be re-entering, you know, things like that, but they kind of have a sense of Google because it's something that even the word itself gives us a sense of comfort because we're Googling stuff, right? You know, it's like,
True.
let me Google that. So it's like, okay, there's a comfort level that comes with that particular word and that brand. And so there are, you know, other ways to do things for sure. But sometimes, you know, just that comfort level, we can't really take that for granted. The students really seem to appreciate and understand this particular suite of different things. And they do have actually, they have a page that I recently saw that was like, there's a COVID, about their suite of items. So I will see if yeah, COVID-19 information and resources for the classroom. So it's like, let's see if I can find it. They have Google for Education. So it's this resources that teachers can use today. And so let me share this with you as well, because this might help. But again, I mean, this is not, we talk about it in terms of the classroom, but this is not just for the classroom. This is something that can be used in various mediums and various situations. So for instance, you know, counseling, as we see, and Bettina had the same idea that I did, that it would be a good idea to do Canvas alternatives, Google alternatives to Zoom, and different, just various alternatives to Zoom, right, Bettina? That's what you were saying? Yeah. So different alternatives to Zoom that we might think about, you know, as we don't want to think of any medium as the be all and end all, right? It's really about the students, and it's about like what we can do in order to support them, to retain them, to help them to develop their sense of autonomy and all of those things. So, you know, we're just, you know, there to help and nurture and hopefully help them to get through this really hard time. And sometimes things that are comforting, like, you know, kind of like how I feel about mashed potatoes, is how Google feels about, I mean, how Google feels to students. Okay. Well, it is 12:59. So did anybody have one final question or thought that you wanted to share?
Thank you. This has been excellent.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Frank. And thank you for your contributions. We really appreciate it. I wanted to give an especial, like, oh my gatos, thank you to Iris, who is one of my favorite people who has ever lived. And just a wonderful, wonderful soul who knows tons of stuff. Really smart. Okay, so thank you for what you brought because I think it's really important for us to hear from students, you know, as we design for you. We need you to be part of that conversation, because you know a lot more a lot of times than we do. And Bettina, of course, thank you so much for your support in this session. I know you didn't know at first that you were going to be here, but I appreciate it because you are amazing. And
Glad to help.
so, yes, thank
I
you
was
so
here
much.
to learn, but I was glad I was able to help too.
Yeah.